Okay, so I read Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. So I'm gonna get straight to the point. I don't want to talk too much about the specifics of what happened within the book because obviously, uh, want to incentivize people to read it without having a preconceived notion of it, make their own ideas, and more importantly, not having spoilers is a pretty good incentive to reading something. So I will do my best here, try to extract a few reflections I have from the book at the same time as I do that. So, uh, right, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Work of its time very clearly because of the setting we have. So very different from modern days. Especially, it's notorious the way people live, the quality of life, and different things that we take for granted are completely uh, just doesn't exist, right? So I thought that was quite interesting because you get to have like a nice look at how people used to live, but is far from the main point I'm trying to make here. So the main character is called Raskolnikov, and he is immediately stated to be a student who has dropped out of law school because of economic problems, and is very clearly someone smart who is very reflective, very articulate, and respected in many ways. So it's pretty much a person who has almost everything going for him in his life except for wealth. So obviously it's called Crime and Punishment, so it's very clear that he ends up committing a murder here. So what I want to talk about is what leads to this, and it was very interesting the way the book is written. So Dostoevsky goes very much into detail on two different thoughts and different things people just think through, which is it's very different from anything else you read, right? Because of the way you see different characters interpret different situations, and it's especially interesting in the case of Raskolnikov, because even though if obviously murder is not something we should consider ourselves proud of by the furthest extent, but I thought it was very interesting what it took to get a character like Raskolnikov to get to the point where he commits murder. So it's very far from somebody just, I don't know, going crazy, losing his mind, and murdering someone in pure delirium. It's very thought. It's, he really thinks this through, which is what I'm trying to say here. It's very premeditated, and the way he sets himself up, and all the things he has to go through, all the things he has to figure out to get himself to that point, to commit what he considers the perfect murder, right? And not just in the sense that you can get away with it without leaving a trace, but in the application of the murder itself. The deletion of someone else's life is very much prominent. So he tries to find every single angle of what a murder implies and try to make it align with something positive, either for him, for his family, or the world. So he has this moral obligation that he sees in himself, for example, and is stated very early on. It's sorry about that. It's stated very early on the novel where they someone else, I think it's his best friend or something. They're talking about an article he posts because as his time as a student, and a concept comes up where he says that people who are of a higher, he states there's two different kinds of people. You like regular people, and then people who are superior in a way. I don't know what the specific name you give them, but essentially people who have a very high cognitive ability, very reflective, people who have a certain level of status, intelligence, amongst other things, and sense of morality among them. So he puts in practice this theory that this kind of person should be able to trespass the law, should have a moral high ground in which they can commit acts which normal people shouldn't be able to, because they know what's better for the greater good and better for society. So it was very interesting. This is a very watered down version of what he obviously said. I'm not gonna remember everything from the book, but it gives you a general idea of it. Starts to set up things, right? So then he starts looking at the victim. So this person has a it's very mean spirited person, very much evil, and is also a wealthy person and has a relative of them pretty much held in captivity. So he starts looking at it, the different ways this is going to go down. Oh, okay, so this other person who has complete innocence in her life and I believe has a mental disability, which is the reason is being she's being like held captive. So he's saying, okay, we get to free this person, have a good life. We get to he thinks in a way he gets to earn a certain level of wealth, which means it will benefit his life and his family's life. And well, there's other specifics of to why he believes his family is compromising different things to obtain wealth and help himself, and help him. Sorry. So he's trying to help his sister, his mother, himself, and he believes that also when he is able to reinstate himself into law school and further on the line become a lawyer, he can do more good for the world by becoming a lawyer and applying justice to the world. So there's various elements that just start forming a sort of staircase that he can go through to commit this murder. And it's very fascinating, particularly because of what I already mentioned of him being a very reflective person, very coherent person, amongst other traits. And I believe something we can take away from this is very interesting in the way he sets himself up. So obviously, I'm not saying we should do the same sort of thing, try to justify murder of some sort of way. It's obviously a specific means, but murder isn't something you take lightly, regardless if you're going to get caught or have any consequences of any sort. So the face value of committing murder is a very extreme act. You have to be in a very insane state or in a very 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 dedicated state to commit murder, especially in the situation that we see in the book. So what I extracted from this is it's a very it's a very I guess you could say solid strategy, because if you imagine ourselves in another situation, or even the main character in another situation where he applies this same sort of thing but with a different purpose that isn't murder, obviously, like, I don't know, found a school, try to help poor people, try to help sick people, and I'm obviously boiling down very surface water to I'm boiling down very very simple things that just come up the top of my head. But what I mean here is this determination and this whole process is very powerful. And I think it's very interesting that it's something we could try to apply to our lives. If we go with the same mentality that this man has over, I don't know, getting good grades, getting a better job, or working out and achieving a healthier lifestyle, or even helping somebody else out, it's very impressive what we can achieve. So it's yeah, so that's about it. It's a pretty interesting thing I thought about the book, and definitely recommend it over. Definitely recommend it for anybody reading through who is definitely has a certain level of complexity. It took me multiple months to get through, not just because of procrastination, but also it's you have to really go in deep. And if you're someone who still doesn't have much of a attention span, for example, it might not be the best idea to go right off the bat reading Crime and Punishment. So I'd recommend. Obviously, this comes uh, this comes from someone who's very much in a self improvement stage of his life that have been for almost a year now. And I would recommend, obviously, kind of things like journaling, meditating, particularly meditating, when it comes to attention span, since nowadays different social medias just kind of fuck that up, and we really have trouble concentrating. So if you're somebody who doesn't really have problem reading different sorts of books, definitely go for it. If not quite, then you should try to level yourself up in that department. And I'm not saying this as to look down upon people who don't have the capability of reading, not the skill of reading, the capability, because it's a very different thing. A lot of people, most people know how to read, but nowadays people don't read, which is a very interesting thing. But I'm getting off the rails here. It's obviously something. Yeah, so this is obviously something that we should take into account when reading or when recommending stuff. That's why I mention it. So that's about it.